Hey folks, Randy Newberg here with another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. It is it's my second favorite time of year. Obviously, hunting season is my favorite time of year, but this time of year is what I call application season. And going forward, what we want to do on this podcast over the next 3 to 4 months, we're going to be throwing in some episodes along the way that focus on how you can hunt elk every year. I don't care where you live, there is some manner, some state, some way that even on a pretty modest budget, you should be hunting elk every year. And we're going to talk about how we do that. We're going to talk about both the long-term strategy, the mid-term strategy, and a short-term strategy of how we do it. We're going to go to every state that has elk hunting that is what I'll call a destination state. Those will be, I'm going to start from the south: Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. We're going to cover every one of those. In past years, we talked about how you can do it, in some degree. What we're going to do this year is go forward with the premise that everyone who's listening probably wants to hunt elk. And even if you have elk hunting in your own state, I hope that when we're done with this series of podcasts throughout the spring and the winter, that even those of you in the states where you can hunt at home with an over-the-counter tag, you realize how many options still exist for you outside of your state's boundaries. I'm one of those lucky people. I get to hunt in so many places, and I've been applying to non-resident or as a non-resident in all these other states for decades, not years, decades. And about 4 years ago, this system, and you hear us talk about it, this group came out of nowhere, for me anyhow. It's called goHUNT.com. And it's become my tool of everything that I do related to this. And I thought today, this is just a quick bonus podcast. This is not one of our regular podcasts. It's a bit of a kind of, here's where we're going with future podcasts, which I hope I've laid out in the last couple minutes that I just got done talking about. I want to do that, let you know where we're going with some of these. And then I also, as quick as we click the button here, on the other line I have Trail Kreitzer. He's one of the research guys at goHUNT. He's been so instrumental in their strategy articles. They have these strategy articles that are over 20 pages long about each state and each species, and it's unbelievable information. Anyhow, Trail spends days and weeks working on that stuff, so I thought I'd grab him, get him on the phone real quick, because goHUNT is revamping their entire system, which already was the best that I've been able to find, and they're revamping it to a faster platform. They just came out with the Wyoming and Arizona draw odds. That information is now out there. You're going to hear about, in Wyoming especially, one big change they were able to implement that's going to, for those of us who really analyze this stuff and those of us who are not sitting on high point totals, this other piece they've come up with where they now have the point totals, or the applicant totals by point level. When we get into that, it's going to be super, super useful. So I don't know. I'll have Trail on the line here for maybe a half hour. This one's not going to be that long. It's just to let you know that 2019 for us here at Hunt Talk, Fresh Tracks, Randy Newberg, Hunter, our platforms, we have it written out on every board, 2019 year of the elk. We're going to really focus on getting elk tags this year, getting a lot of fun elk content. We always do a lot of it, but this is the year we're going to get serious about it. So the very first part of that is drawing a tag. If you don't have a tag, well, I hope if you don't have a tag, you're not going elk hunting. For me, it's the absolute critical step. And I hope that when we walk through this, you realize that getting a tag might seem like this daunting, overwhelming, never going to draw kind of doom and despair thing, that it really is doable. It's doable on a very modest budget. Every one of these states we go through, we're going to talk about, if you have a budget of $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, here's the way you could approach this state. Every bit of it that we're talking about is based on all the information right here at our fingertips with the goHUNT Insider. So anyhow, that the Hunt Talk podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. That's why we call it Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio, brought to you by Orion Coolers. Go out to orioncoolers.com, buy the best coolers you can, use promo code Randy, and get some big benefit for that. Go to Onyx Maps, another very critical tool in how we do our planning, both our planning of where we're going to draw, and then once we draw, our planning of where we're going to hunt. Go to onyxmaps.com, use promo code Randy, save 20% on all their app products. And then goHUNT.com, who we're going to get on the phone with here, Trail. Go out to goHUNT.com, use promo code Randy when you sign up for the Insider, and get $50 of free store credit in an amazing gear shop. So with that, you're going to hear a little click here. And when we make that click, Trail is going to be on the line, and we're going to talk a little bit of Wyoming and Arizona and insider strategy. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Okay, folks, I told you that we were going to have the research manager, the gear expert, the man who knows all things related to Wyoming and Arizona, Trail Kreitzer from goHUNT. Trail, I hope I'm not understating your talents.
I think you maybe oversold me, but I'll take it.
Well, it's this is a fun time of year. I was looking at how many emails you got last night that you responded to publicly out here on the goHUNT Insider, all those messages. You got a ton of emails when this released in the last 12 hours.
Yeah, it's been busy for sure. And, customer service is important. And I know how important my personal hunting applications are. So I want to get back to as many people as I can and just hope that they have some luck in the draw and help them out.
Well, I know how busy you guys are, and I really appreciate you taking some time here. Everyone knows at this time of year, I really get into the application stuff because the absolute first thing you need to go on an elk hunt is an elk tag. And unless you're lucky like I do to live in a state with a guaranteed elk tag for residents, you better know how these draw systems work, and you better have really good information at your fingertips. And that's why I'm such a big fan of the goHUNT Insider. I know you guys are up against these deadlines all the time in the spring. I don't know how you guys get any sleep. It's probably like me and tax season come about April 15th.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It gets so busy this time of year, and it's just the nature of the job. So, cool. I mean, all the state rules and regs start coming out, and we're processing those and updating seasons, and handling all the customer service types of things. And I get a whole lot less sleep from about December 1st through about May. But I like to make up for it with Chris and Lorenzo come September and October.
There you go. Hey, guys, remember how much I worked last winter? I'm going to be hunting for a couple months.
Exactly.
But one of the things I always look for, the very first thing I grab in the Insider are your strategy articles. And I know you were telling me that you did the Wyoming elk strategy article, and it's going live here any moment. Is that correct?
Yeah. I passed it off to Brady. It's probably been 4 or 5 days ago, and I know he's been cranking hard on that. And I do all the nuts and bolts, and he makes it look awesome, and gets all those cool graphs and graphics, and really helps me out with anything that I might have missed. But he makes it look good, and we should have it live here within the next few days, I think.
Cool. Well, I tell people that quote unquote price of admission to the GoHUNT Insider is worth just the strategy articles, whether it's by state, by species, whatever. I read them multiple times, and I always catch some little nugget that maybe even a guy like me who's been applying in all these states since 1993. Wow, I'm old. That makes me that makes me sound really old. What were you doing in 1993, Trail?
93. I think I would have been in 7th grade. I'm not that young. I'll be 40 next year, Randy. So
okay.
I'm not on the young spectrum, especially when it comes to GoHUNT and a lot of people that work here. We have a lot of these young guys that are our tech team that are very young.
Yeah. Well, I just say that because I've been doing this forever. My favorite term is I've been doing it since Moby Dick was a minnow, and I'm picking something up every year. And there's one that you and I are going to have to talk about when I come through Nevada, because I think you're telling the world too much here every once in a while. So I might ask you to retract or redact or whatever the term is.
Maybe rein it in a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a certain bit of your Arizona strategy article, but from last year.
Right.
But anyhow, getting to what we want to cover on this podcast, I want to talk about the new upgrades and the fact that the Wyoming and Arizona draw odds are up. The fact that you guys are rebuilding I don't know, is it the back end of the platform that makes the two new states so much faster than the old platform?
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of technology, and again, I mean, I'm being fed a lot of this information by the tech team because I don't understand, the ins and outs of computer code and those kinds of things. But when it comes to technology and the internet and how things work, I mean, we're 4 years in with our Insider platform, and 4 years in terms of technology and computers and those kinds of things is an eternity.
Yeah.
And things just needed to be updated, and ultimately we just wanted to completely create a new site. Things will still function pretty much the same. The user's not going to see a ton of difference, other than they are going to see tons of speed increase. They're going to see more functionality. They're going to see some new filters and those kinds of things, and we have some big plans for some really cool advancements on that Insider platform. But yeah, I mean, ultimately we basically just redid everything, and it took a long time. I mean, it took 6 months. Those guys have been just grinding, putting tons of hours in, and just putting all that effort in, and it's taken a little bit longer than we thought. But yeah, ultimately it's going to be a much better user experience. Right now, like you said, we just rolled out 2 states, so Wyoming and Arizona. And people are going to see those as a standalone experience. If you log into goHUNT.com, right there at the top of the page, you're going to see a highlighted orange bar that's going to have that link to those new odds. And we did that just because we knew that those draws were opening up. Yeah. And people are serious about their research. We're serious. We're diehard hunters ourselves. So we really wanted to make sure that was up and available for people first and foremost. And then the rest of the states, you're going to see them come along here in the next few weeks, mid-January.
Cool, because right now, it's the first week of January, and our Wyoming deadline is January 31st. And then what's the Arizona deadline this year? February 12th or something like that?
Yep, coming up at the middle of February.
Yeah. So, well, the one Wyoming enhancement, and I appreciate you guys letting me have a look under the hood every once in a while as you're working on stuff. But the real game changer of everything you've done, and I don't know how you guys did this, but you convinced Wyoming Game and Fish to give you the application information that has point total or application numbers by point level, which in the past, all you could get from Wyoming was, okay, everyone at 9 points drew, 60% of the people at 8 points drew, and there were 45 people with 7 or less points. So you never really knew how many people were ahead of you at what point level. And it always frustrated me. And now I pull this up, and you guys have it broken out by the number of applicants at every point level for every hunt code.
Yeah.
That's a game changer for those of us junkies who are trying to find that little gem in Wyoming. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was under the same place you were. I mean, I was always frustrated. At the cutoff line, you could basically only see the number of applicants that didn't draw, and you had really no idea if you were competing with 4 other guys at your point level or 40 other guys. And kind of a long story, but it was the same. I was facing the same issue you were, and ultimately, long story short, it just took me finding the right individual there at Wyoming Game and Fish, and being able to exchange some messages with them, and getting them to kind of understand why it was important to have that data, so that you could see how many people you were in that same pool with, so that moving forward you could have a much better idea on your application strategy. Ultimately, the cool thing about this is it gives you the ability to really pick and choose between units and selections now. I mean, you can really start to fine tune your application and say, okay, maybe this unit isn't for me because there's too many people at that same point level. Whereas, unit A, B, or C is a better option because there are less applicants at my same level that have applied for that hunt. And so kind of gives you that leg up on your strategy.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I don't have a lot of points, but one of the people in our crew has 6 points, and last year it took 8 points for that tag, and it said I think there were 14 people at 7.5 or less points. So I almost gave up on that unit for this person in our crew. I thought, 6 points, I'll never draw. Well, I look. There's only one in all of these other applicants. There's only one person who has 1 more point than him.
Right.
So with that number of tags being issued, he's actually, unless people jump in off the sidelines who had just been buying points and they jump in, I'm like, that guy's going elk hunting this year, or possibly. And I would have never known that. I would have just thought, all right, there's 14 people in the pool, and a bunch of those are probably ahead of him at 6 points. No, there's only one person ahead of him, and then there's like 12 people behind him. So that's where this kind of information is really, really, well, for me anyhow, someone who makes this my daily life this time of year, this is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge deal. I mean, it's a game changer for sure. I can't tell you how personally excited I was when I was able to finally get that data and start picking through it. For elk, it's important, but when you start looking at other species like antelope,
yep.
I mean, man, there's so many doors that could open to you just because you can now evaluate what your chances are based on how many people are at your same point level. So. Yeah, it's a game changer. I'm super excited about it, and I think ultimately it's going to help a lot of our insiders put tags in their pockets this year. So,
well, I'm excited about it. The other thing I see that now I can also do sorts by second choice, not just first choice.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for me in the deer world, I try to hunt a lot of leftover deer tag or second choice deer tags in Wyoming. You just saved me a few hours of time of kind of having my own little manual spreadsheet there of, let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, no, I think I'm going to do the regular draw because there were still some leftovers there. I could save $200. So that's...
Yeah, absolutely. I took I have a new hunter in my family. He's my oldest boy, Landon, just turned 13, and I don't know if I should say this, but last year I had access to this, and I was able to look through the data, and like I said, we couldn't get it up and live until this year, but I was able to sort through the data and look at it, and able to pick up a permit for antelope for he and I as the second choice, and we went up there and stayed 3 days and just had a phenomenal hunt, and both of us, killed antelope, and again that was on a second choice tag, and that was his first big game animal, which is so cool, but.
Yeah, so as a second choice, nobody burned any points, but you guys still got to go hunting.
Yep, yeah, we both retained I retained my points, and he picked up a point, and then we both got to go hunting. So it was awesome.
It's that kind of stuff, and I know some of those listening to this podcast, they're probably thinking, Newberg, you nerd out on this stuff. In just the worst way, and I do. I'm standing upstairs in my Randy room right now, and I have file cabinets full of old junk when I used to have to do all this by hand. Magazine articles in this magazine and that map and notes from this biologist. To now have all this at my fingertips almost feels like I'm cheating or something. But I'm more than happy.
It is quick. It's so much more accessible, and it is a whole lot more. And I know exactly what you used to do. I used to do it too. Dig through those reports, and I mean it's even that much more so when you start adding in things like harvest success, and it's definitely a more streamlined and easy process for sure.
Yeah. So Wyoming is up. Arizona, they haven't changed too. Wyoming, the big change that I noticed, I went on the site today and walked through as though I was going to buy a license, and I always do it just to. Sometimes there's a few things that change, and when I walk through and do kind of a dummy transaction, I realize what they are, and it looks like you're not able to buy. In the past, you used to check the box if you wanted to buy a point. Now, it looks like you're going to have to buy a point in the July through September deadline. Unless I missed something, that's what it's looking like, that you can't buy a point now. So I wonder how many people will forget to buy their point, thinking, I always do that with my application. And then the expensive part of it is, and this is going to make me rethink my strategy of whether or not I'll apply for bison this year, is 2.5% credit card transaction fee in Wyoming. Ooh.
Yeah, 2.5 on any application that and they require you to front the cost of the application. So you're exactly right. I mean, if you're applying for the any bison tag at $4,400, 2.5% of that cost is a fair amount, and then if you extrapolate that over other species like elk and deer and antelope, and then for like me and probably you also, if you're applying your kids or your wife, for example, it's a big deal. It's going to be an added cost for sure.
Yeah. Well, for me, this is exciting stuff to have some of these features and updates and changes. The Arizona side of things, I've been playing around with it since you guys sent me the link, and I have the Arizona proclamations in front of me. It doesn't seem like Arizona has changed too much this year from what I can gather.
I haven't seen a ton of changes in Arizona. The odds on our end are going to look very similar to what they've looked like in the past as far as presentation, and you're going to be able to click on each individual unit and evaluate the detailed draw odds page, similar to like we just talked about in Wyoming, where you can see those point breakdowns. And Arizona, we don't have the applicants at each point level, but you can see kind of trends, so you can get an idea on what the creep is like. Something I will note that might your listeners are probably going to be interested in is that new for this year for us, at least on the odds end, we're actually going to include youth odds. So last year we started with antlerless elk and deer and all the antlerless species, and this year we're actually going to add the youth hunts. So that's going to become increasingly more important. Arizona's got some youth hunts. We're going to have those odds. States like New Mexico, which you'll probably get into on a later date. Yep. But they have some awesome youth elk hunts. They just have some great opportunities for youth, and we're going to cover those odds this year as well.
Yeah, and you said that your son is 13. or was 13 last year. I'm sure that you have been taking advantage of the $5 non-resident youth license in Arizona and building points.
Absolutely. Yep.
I've been hammering that bit, and people are like, Newberg, why are you so much into this Arizona youth license? And I guess because I thought everybody was doing it. I thought everyone knew about this. So my son is 28. He has 18 points for every species in Arizona other than elk because he's already burned those one time.
Right.
And people will ask him, you're only 28. How'd you end up with 18 points already? Well,
Yeah.
for a $5 non-resident license and whatever the point fee is, I can't even remember, $15 or something. Those are the cheapest points you're ever going to acquire for your children. They will thank you someday. And
yeah. I mean, and it's expensive to apply for as an adult.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely take advantage while your kids are young and help build them points.
Yeah, and for me, as quick as he was done with high school, he had enough points that we could draw any late rifle elk tag in Arizona, pretty much.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, I hope that's the case with my kid when we get there. We'll see.
It probably will be. I hope that Arizona continues to have a good moisture year. Last year was I didn't hunt there for elk, but all reports are it was such a hard moisture year last year. They got good moisture in the fall, but it's too little too late at that time.
Yeah, it was tough. I actually drew a late archery tag in a unit I had hunted before 3 years ago, and those late archery tags, they're an easier draw. But yeah, I mean the quality was noticeable. It was definitely down. A lot of mature 5 points, small 6s, that just didn't have the back end. They had decent fronts, but just hardly anything in the back end. And I would say I hunted, I want to say 9 or 10 days on my own, and I think it took me 6 full days to actually find a bull that I thought was a good representation of what that unit could produce, and even that it was down from what it should have been. So it was tough. I mean, I'm like you. I'm hoping they get some early spring moisture this year, and then I'm hoping those monsoons really kick in and it helps them finish off because it was tough last year.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's I'm keeping my fingers crossed because the good monsoon they got last year, and then they've had some. Well, I saw even southern Arizona, south of Tucson, got snow last week. So maybe it'll be one of those good moisture years, and everybody will be working the computers hard to figure out what their best draw odds are in Arizona. But I'm not going to. I'm inclined to not give people too much help until after the deadline. I know that the best help I can give them is go to goHUNT.com, sign up for the Insider, and use promo code Randy and get $50 of mad money in the best gear shop I know.
I love it.
That's the best advice I can give anybody without completely ruining my own chances and my own odds to draw tags. But
I don't know if you've heard my take on that. I adopted this a long time ago. People would ask me, and it got to be where I couldn't remember what I'd told them. So I started telling them the truth because I think they always assume I was lying anyway. So I just started telling them the truth, and they'd look at me like, you're lying to me. And at that point, I mean, I think we're playing more head games than anything, so they don't know what to believe anyway. But that's my strategy.
I like that approach. I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say, really, here's my GPS coordinates. Here's where I hunted, and they'll probably think he wouldn't do that. He's sending me somewhere else.
Yep.
Well, Arizona elk, Arizona antelope, the deadline is there in February. I think for whatever reason, the 12th sticks in my head. When do you think the strategy article will be up on the Insider for those, for Arizona?
Yeah, so you're spot on. The deadline is the 12th. The Arizona application strategy, I would think, will probably be here within maybe the next week.
Okay.
I think you'll see that Wyoming one within the next 2 or 3 days. come alive. And there's some good stuff in that. I spent a lot of time on that Wyoming application strategy article, and I think it's just like you said. If you're willing to dive through the whatever 24 pages I think it was that I turned in to poor Brady, there's some nuggets in there if you're willing to really dive in and take a look at it.
Trust me, I dive into it myself and my crew. We scroll through it, and we pretty much take paragraph by paragraph. And we'll talk about a lot of that stuff because we do videos on it this year. We're really focused on elk this year, and our series of videos last year was about how each state works. This year it's hunt elk every year, and we're going to walk through state by state and say, this is how this state should play into your elk hunting strategy. Wyoming should be, you can make it a midterm, a short term, or a long-term strategy. Arizona should be a midterm or long-term strategy. Rather than go through how it works for sheep and goat and moose and everything, we've found that people are super, super interested in the elk side of it. And we think that we can get into more depth, more detail by analyzing this even further by just saying, we're going to show you how we use the goHUNT system to hunt elk every year, and you should be doing the same thing. So
yeah, that's ultimately, I mean, I tell people all the time, as much as, I work here at goHUNT and it's my career, and obviously I'm very passionate about research and hunting, but ultimately I'm a user too, and I use the product just like I think most of our users do. And I tell people all the time, they ask me, why should I sign up? And ultimately, I always tell them it's because it's going to open your eyes to some opportunities that you probably even had no idea that existed. Yeah. And especially when it comes to elk. If you're talking, over-the-counter opportunities in Colorado or Idaho, Wyoming is a phenomenal elk state, as you know. And yeah. It's like you were saying, if you want to have a pretty good hunt with a couple of points, it's a possibility. If you want to wait and maybe hunt a little bit better hunt with a little bit less pressure, that's an opportunity too. And I mean, there's great quality. There's so many elk. It's an awesome elk state.
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing a podcast the other day. Me and Corey Jacobson do our Elk Talk podcast, and we got in a discussion about if you're a non-resident, what should be your top two states, and we settled on Arizona and Wyoming. That if you have a limited budget, if you have $1,000, you can still make it work in those two states. To apply, to buy your licenses, buy your points. And yeah, $1,000 is still quite a bit of money, but you can save that up over a little period of time. And when you tell people every 5 or 6 years, maybe even sooner, if you're willing to hunt the general units in Wyoming, you should be elk hunting one of these good places. They look at you as though, you're kidding me, right? No, right. I'm not kidding you. That's how we do it. That's how we end up with a lot of tags to film our video content. So
yeah, absolutely. I remember, growing up and thinking that really my only opportunity to hunt elk was going to be in Utah, which is where I'm from, and I'm a resident. And it's a pretty bleak picture when you start thinking about elk hunting in Utah. You think there's some amazing areas and some giant bulls, but the chances to hunt is just so slim. But yeah, it's like I said, you start looking outside your boundaries and you start looking at states like Arizona and Wyoming and Montana and Colorado and Idaho. There's really no reason you can't hunt, and even a real quality hunt every year.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the things you got to do is that mule deer junkie that you guys have there in the office, yeah. Mr. Miller.
Yeah, Britt.
You guys,
he's sitting here next to me.
Is he? Oh, he's listening in, huh?
Well, yeah, he's eavesdropping. I think secretly he's got a little elk bug going on.
Yeah, did I see that he shot an elk this year? Finally, he lowered his standards to shoot an elk.
He did. We went to Wyoming and he and I bow hunted, and I was able to fill my tag, and he got a couple days on the rifle hunt and went back and shot his first bull.
Cool. Well, about time. I was having concerns about that guy for a while, but now he...
We should ask him which one he prefers to eat better next time we talk to him.
Yeah, I'll be seeing him in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna ask him if he's ready to come over from the dark side of mule deer to the real side of elk. But I better not say that. I got some listeners who probably are like, "Hey, wait a second, Randy. I'm into that mule deer thing too." So I best not make too much fun, especially somebody who shoots mule deer of the quality that Brady shoots. So.
There's no debating that he killed a giant again this year in Colorado. So I can understand it, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, Trail, this podcast here was kind of a bonus podcast that it's going to be just an extra one in between all of our roll orders. So I really appreciate you taking the time, as busy as you are, trying to get all this stuff up and ready and research articles. I know I'm imposing on you here. It's after hours, and I want to thank you for taking the time and giving me the quick update of where things are at, when stuff's going to be available, because if you guys look at the back end and you see how much time Randy Newberg spends logged into the goHUNT Insider, you guys are probably going to charge me some server space or bandwidth space or something.
We might charge you double next time.
Probably.
You're getting too much out of your insider membership.
I know.
No, I appreciate you having me on, and ultimately I just wanted to, to the insiders that are out there that are your listeners, and certainly there's a ton of them that are, just wanted to express our gratitude for those guys that are members. We definitely value their membership and their support, and we are cranking to get the best draw odds up and available. And like I said, we got Wyoming and Arizona. The other ones will come shortly, and they're going to work in conjunction with the filtering side of things, and we're going to have that all up and working, and it's going to be a much better user experience. We're super excited about it. We have a ton of new features that are going to be coming later in the year, and yeah, we're grateful for their membership, and we're just so excited about the upcoming possibilities and all the new improvements that we've got coming.
Cool. Well, when I come through town here in a couple weeks, you and I will sit down and we'll discuss this Arizona thing that I really want you to kind of dampen down the promotion on. And not really. I want everyone to know everything they can, but you've kind of opened up the cover of the book to one of my secrets, not secrets, but one of my tactics of how we used to draw tags with more regularity. Right. And I knew I'd said it a time or two, and I knew people were going to figure it out. But I'm pretty sure when they read your strategy article, if they read it closely, they're going to pick up on it. So I hope they go out there and sign up and start reading these strategy articles, because they're going to get some nuggets, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to catching up with you when you're in town, and I can't wait to talk shop and kind of pick you. It's always fun to pick somebody else's brain that's really loves a deep dive into the data and is really trying to strategize and find those little hidden gems. So it'll be fun to catch up and see what you're thinking and compare notes.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate it, Trail. You have a great weekend, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Likewise. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yep.